what happened is these climbers made it up to about 9,200 feet, and they were going up that ice wall, and one of them fell and was belayed to the other, right? And so he fell, he hit, broke himself to pieces, and then the other guy was pulled off the top shelf and flew over the mountain, this hump on this ridge, and hit the other side.
Welcome to the Calm and the Chaos podcast, where we discuss untold heroic experiences and dive into the mindset of the Navy's elite rescue swimmers. Hosted by former U.S. Navy Aviation Rescue Swimmer, Mount Everest solo summiteer, and best-selling author Brian Dickinson.
Hey everyone, it's Brian Dickinson. If you're enjoying these stories, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. It helps more people find these conversations, and it keeps the mission alive. And if you want early access to new episodes and to support what we're building, consider becoming a Spotify paid subscriber. Your support means everything. Now let's jump in so others may live. Frank Leets, retired Master Chief, 27 years of service. So exciting, and such a cool era that you were in. You're just OG, beyond OG. I love having folks from your era on. I'm super pumped. And you were actually in part of Calm and the Chaos, one of the rescues. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Brian. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell everyone about yourself. Like, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Los Angeles, California, a little town called Torrance, and other areas, but born in Inglewood and all that stuff. So grew up in Los Angeles.
Nice. So that must have been fun in that time frame.
Oh yeah, the big thing was Motley Crue had come out, and Rat and all these awesome bands came out, and if you didn't know how to play guitar and you weren't playing guitar, you weren't having as much fun as you could in those days. And so that's what I did, and I was a musician.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. So Tell us a little bit about that. That's fun.
It started off when I was a kid. And September 18th of 1975, my dad took me to the Los Angeles Forum and my sister, and he had claimed that he'd been the stage manager for the Beach Boys for a long time. And we kind of broke in the back door that was open. It was like noon on a Friday, and Carl Wilson was up on stage. Nobody else was in the Forum, and he was doing a sound check. That's the guitar player for the Beach Boys, right? Mm-hmm. And they were doing the Endless Summer tour, and that was nice. They all had their beards on the front of the album. And we walked right up to the stage, and Carl looked down and said, "Les, is that you?" Because everybody has beards now. They didn't have beards when my dad left, right? And he jumped off, put his guitar down, jumped off the stage, and said, "Hey." As it turns out, my dad was like best friends with these guys. Wow. And I was playing with the guitar up on stage, making it sound through the acoustics, go through the Los Angeles Forum, and then Carl Wilson took us back towards the dressing room, and Brian came out and got a bunch of pictures together and everything else, and then took us into the dressing room, and a bunch of everybody else came. Like Mike Love came, Courtney Love came. She was the same age as me. We're like 7, and she came in, and bottom line, Carl came in and well, he had asked me, he said, "You want to play music? You interested in playing music?" I said, "Yeah, I want to play guitar just like you. I always have." So he went up on the stage, and he took that Rickenbacker that he got guitar, put it in the case, and brought it down and gave it to me. And he said, "You'll play this guitar your whole, forever. Learn how to play music. I want you to play your whole life. Just promise me that." Yeah, yes, sir. And he gave me my first guitar. So after that, no, it's one of those stories where dad goes out of town, and I traded it. Got plenty of pictures of it though.
Yeah, that's too bad. So do you still play?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I still play, and it's my little area over here. I'm not sure if it's good for your podcast, but
nice. We're taking a field trip today. This is great.
Yeah. So that's my little area where I just keep it real.
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man.
That's so cool. Yeah. Dude, so how does someone go from that? I mean, that's almost like a career starter in itself, to jumping out of helicopters.
Well, my dad was a door gunner, right?
Okay.
He was a door gunner, and then a primary radio operator for the command ship. And his commanding officer is, I forget his name right now, but you see him in Apocalypse Now, right?
Oh.
Or it's Robert Duvall in Apocalypse Now, where he wears the first or seventh cavalry hat, and he has the patch and everything else that makes the guys go surfing. He goes, "Get out there and surf," because Charlie don't surf. Well, my dad was actually the radio operator for him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty neat. And so
That is neat.
all my life I grew up, and there's helicopters and aircraft around, and dad's stories about being a door gunner and everything else. And so I said, that's something that I want to do one day. Sounds fun.
It sounds fun. Yeah. So when did you go in?
So I went in July 4th of 1987.
How was
Yeah,
that?
it was great, man. I couldn't believe I actually got in the military, because, I I hadn't gone to school, and I finally went back to school and got my high school diploma on an accelerated schedule. Got that,
Uh-huh.
and I was able to get in. And then when I got in, uh, you know, finally made it through jet mechanic A school, volunteered to go to air crew school, and then top of the class physically in air crew school, not academically, right? And then and they said, "Hey, you're a non-tac, you're a mech, jet mechanic. You can go down and go through rescue swimmer school if you volunteer." I'm
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, that's what I want to do. Hell yeah." And I did. And I checked into rescue swimmer school February 12th, 1988 in Pensacola, Florida.
Okay. 88. So how long had Rescue Swimmer School been in Pensacola at that point?
I think they opened their first one at HC1 that I know of in 1980. And Joe Aruda was part of that, and a bunch of other guys. Then it moved to Pensacola at some point.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
it was right around
I'm
then.
not
So that
sure.
was close to the Marecki days.
Yeah, that was the Meraki days, actually. So William Meraki was an AW going through school, and they were forcing all the AWs at the time to go through rescue swimmer school. You couldn't not go through rescue swimmer school and then become a flyer.
Hmm.
The way they had it was rescue swimmer school was first, and once you graduated rescue swimmer school, then you went on to AWA school, and then you were slated to go to helicopters, or obviously, right? Um, but if you weren't in that pipeline, then you could go to like P3s and stuff. But if you're in the helicopter pipeline and you went through rescue swimmer school, if you failed out of rescue swimmer school, you lost your A school.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was like a, hey, pass or fail kind of thing. You're going to become, a deck ape out there, and you're going to be chalking and chaining aircraft with
Yeah.
everybody else like
And
me.
just for all the deck apes out there, solid job. We appreciate you.
Yeah, like me. I'm one. So
There you go.
that's how we rise, right?
Right.
Anyways, it was good. So, but that was their mind. They were trying to scare him,
Oh, yeah.
and so anyway, so Meraki was part of that time frame. He was on my team, right? He was on 8809 with me, and then he was killed on 8810, and I was there for that. And then I went on to 8811, and then went the whole route all the way to my 4-2 day, which is your multiple rescue, your final multi-day.
Yeah. Multis.
Yeah, final multiple rescue day, and then your open base swim was the next day, and then you got to come in. You're graduating. You got to wear your rescue swimmer uh, uh, jumpsuit, right? Your
Yeah.
sweats and or your logo, and that was a big thing. So it was right there, and
Nice.
then they shut the school down, and
Yeah, wow. Man, that's a crazy time to go through. What an experience. Like how was that? Like front and back end of it? Because it was hardcore, sharks and daisies, just out of control from what I understand. I
yeah,
was in 93, so it was a few years after that, but
yeah,
still it was like top of mind.
yeah. So it was basically, they would start with 67 people, a few non-tax in there, and a bunch, A-dubs would be coming through. And then that class would graduate with 8 or 12 people in it. And
Mhm.
that was it, right?
Yeah.
Because it went back and forth. Like at the time went through with the Marines, the Coast Guard, and the Navy, all went through the Navy Rescue Swimmer School, the
Mhm.
aviation
Yeah, same.
the same way.
Yeah, I think they changed it maybe in like 96
Oh,
or 97.
yeah, they became ASTs and all that other stuff
Hmm.
for those guys, the Coast Guard. But yeah, it was really something to see because they had graduated a class before us, and then they said their swimmer jumped in the water out in Alaska, and you may have heard about this. She jumped out, hit the water, and well, I'm not even sure if it was a chick or a dude. I think it was a chick, but she jumped out and hit the water, and then she just was floating there. So they had to send somebody else in to go get her,
Mm. Yeah.
and has nothing to do with being male or female. It just has to do with person's the way that they're set
Yeah.
upstairs. And they hit the water, and all she could say when they recovered her was deep. She had to go through. She was afraid of the deep water, and
Oh,
so
really?
as it turns out, yeah.
Huh.
Anyway, so they said, hey, you guys got to be tougher in rescue swim school. You got to weed out these freak accidents, blah blah blah. And so that's when they got really tough. And I just thought that's the way things were, just a
Yeah.
kid going through
Yep.
it. And if you
Understood.
grab me too hard, I'm gonna thump you. You may be an instructor, but I'm gonna break your teeth out, and you're gonna know who I am, right? And that's kind of the mentality that they wanted you to have when you're going through, as all of us have. Um, Once you graduate, to be that alpha, because when you
Yeah.
put in the water, you're alone, Jack. You know.
Yeah. It's
Um,
tough because you kind of have to, that pendulum has to swing back and forth before it might, become a healthy somewhere in between. But yeah, like you said, I remember hearing that story. I never knew if it was just a story, like to scare us or whatever,
right.
just rationalize what we were going through. But it worked.
Yeah.
I
Oh, it
hit-
does work. It definitely works. Yeah, that's funny, Brian. Yeah, the thing is they came through, and at the time, the SEAL teams in San Diego, their training outfit for SEAL Team One out there, they killed a guy in training, and then we killed Meraki in training, and then they pulled a swimmer, aviation boats rescue swimmer out of the pool in Jacksonville, Florida, because there was a school down there at one time, and
Mhm.
they pulled him out of the pool, and he had 106-degree body core temperature and brain damage. I don't know whatever happened to that swimmer, but it all
Wow.
happened in the same week, and
Oh
they couldn't
gosh.
shut the SEALs down, so they didn't do that, and so they kept it going and kept the SEALs going. They shut us down, and on my 4-2 day, I was telling you, right? And so I was almost done, man. And they shut us down. They came out and they took 5 of us out of the 2 teams. It was uh, at the time it was 88 that were left were 88-11 and 88-12, right? And they took the 2 teams, and there was 5 of us, the top of us that were on the 2 teams, and they said, hey, we'll take you into Hell Week, straight into SEAL training if you guys want to be SEALs, right?
Mhm.
And 4 of us didn't go, but the one of us that did go was a little bit shorter than me, and his name was Bishop. Nicest guy, man, the nicest guy. And but he was the better swimmer of all of us anyway. And
Mhm.
Bishop went, and he went on, he became a SEAL, and I don't know whatever happened to him, but he was a really cool dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always had a smile on his face. Cool guy. Anyway, so after that, I went on to get my wings at HC1 or HS10, sorry. And then
Mhm.
after HS10, I had to go back to rescue swimmer school all over again when they opened it up. And
Oh, okay.
right, yeah. So all those guys that were on 8810 and on hold and all that stuff, uh, they went through NJP process, right, and actual court martials and all that other stuff.
Great.
And I was able to go on. Some of them went on, some got kicked out of the Navy, and it was a really ugly thing that happened.
So that's interesting because usually when you go to 10, you're doing SAR jumps as a part of it and all the operations. Were you able to do that or did you have to wait, go back and then
I had to wait and go back. I couldn't do it. It
yeah,
was embarrassing. I was upset, right?
yeah, I bet.
And yeah, and anyways, but I just cut through it, did what I had to do, and then went through HS10 and got my wings and went back through rescue swimmer school, this time at HC1. and they had Iron Mike Faculty, which was a Master Chief SEAL that was put in charge of the entire program for CNET, right? For all of us.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was messing around standing on the bottom of the pool, and he, I was being the safety swimmer, right? You're supposed to sit on the side of the pool, right? And so I was standing on the bottom looking at everybody like Mr. Tough Guy from freaking Rescue Swimmer School in Pensacola, right? And I look up and I see this big, huge man, and it's rippling, and I can see him looking down, and it's the Master Chief, and he's in his UDT shorts, right? And I come up to the top, and he like grabs me by my freaking SAR-1 and freaking pulls me out of the pool, and gives me a peace of mind. As it turns out, he knew my Master Chief that I was to the command I was going to. His name is Red Dog Moss, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Red Dog. He's a legend, and so thankful. He's like my second dad, man. He's been there my whole life, right? Ever since I checked in, and so Master Chief Faculty called Red Dog, and because they know each other very well from the Philippines, and he said, "I got one of your boys here. This is what he's done. He's been through some crap. Do I keep him on, or do you want me to get rid of him?" And he's talking to him on the phone in front of me. And so he hung up and he said, "You're lucky the Master Chief wants you. He's like, if you finish the rest of the school without any trouble, I'll let you pass." I'm like, "Thanks, Master Chief." Right. Thanks. And then I found out later how huge Iron Mike Faculty was. To me, he was a Master Chief SEAL, and that's all I needed to know.
Yeah.
Pretty neat. I graduated, went out there to Barking Sands. Yeah.
How was it going through just the curriculum and everything at that point? Was it all pretty similar, or?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. The difference is so out of the original two teams, 8811 and 8812, with all of us that were on it, heck, there were so many of us. There was only four of us that went back. Like Bishop went to the SEALs, and then four of us, me, Brown, Heck was the AW, good dude, and I don't remember the fourth guy went and became rescue swimmers and went back through the school all over again. Out of all those people,
What'd the rest do?
and I don't know. I don't know.
Crewman?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Yeah, they went on their way. I don't know. Maybe if they got another chance at it. But the curriculum was pretty much laid out the same, right? It was, I don't know, as far as, well, they still had a type of sharks and daisies, but they didn't call it that. It was just holds and release day,
Yeah, life-saving.
Yeah, life-saving. Yeah, the week of it. And so curriculum's all still the same, pretty much. They modified it. They took the 3 mile run out, I think, and they made it a 1.5. And they took the pull-ups out of it, which like you had to do 10 pull-ups to graduate and pass a 3 mile run. And I think you had like 24 minutes or something. My best time on that was like 18:35. Bud Nelson was, do you know who Bud Nelson is?
Mm-mm.
Oh, he's phenomenal leader, outstanding rescue swimmer, one of my great leaders of the day. He was my LPO, and he became the SAR model manager after he made Master Chief years later.
Nice.
And it was a big part of that growth. Another one of Red Dog's offsprings, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So
he's childed a lot of great children.
oh yeah, he just amazing, sincere human being, and he was there with you the whole time. And 3-4 times a week at lunchtime, he's running 3 miles one way to eat lunch, and then he runs back the other way with Jerry Balderson, another rescue swimmer who those guys were in HC5 together back in the day. And
I love Red Dog because he's the epitome of OG, old salt.
That's the one.
Walks the walk. Like he can talk it, but everyone who's had experiences with him, I mean, I'm grateful for the amount of time that I've had with him, and he reaches out pretty daily too. Maybe he's my second dad too.
Yeah, good.
Good.
Yeah, there's so much merit in everything he's saying, and and I was lucky enough to be trained right up front, and he trained me to rappel out of the helicopter before I left Barking Stands, and to trust my equipment and everything else. And then I left there and then came to Whidbey Island. That's whole superior game as far as that all comes to, right? That was something else. But yeah, so the rescue swimmer school changed for the better fundamentally, and it moved on. And then like you're a product of it, right? I'm a product of the new rescue swimmer school also. So I went to both of them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
that's man, you're in a small club. How is it fitness wise? Because you go to 10. I mean, you can get fit on your own time, but that's almost a year of, just in the classroom and flight time and
It was just a part of my life. So already when I checked into NACIS and I was always like always did martial arts. I always did all these things growing up, like push-ups and sit-ups and try to catch flies with chopsticks and
chopsticks.
stuff like
Nice.
that.
Nice job, Danielson.
Right, exactly. Like my shirt.
Yeah,
That's
that's awesome.
that's you, man.
That's me.
Yeah,
Nice.
you're a 60 guy, right?
Yeah, it's Foxtrot and hotels.
Get some.
Yeah, that does look familiar. Yeah, that's me.
I knew it was. So anyway, picking up where we left off, I just had a good time, met a lot of folks.
Yeah.
Did both things, went to Barking Sands. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, tell us about like you want to hop to Whidbey SAR because it
Sure.
sounds like you had some incredible experiences there, and the one that's in the book is just I've been on, I'm high altitude mountaineer. I've been on Baker a lot, had my
Oh
own
yeah.
personal rescues on the civilian side up there, and it's legit. And you guys, I'm just gonna let you talk about it because it's pretty amazing.
Well, it's just a long lineage of all the, all the SAR petty officers and SAR managers and SAR officers that managed Whidbey Island search and rescue over the years. They knew, okay, as you know, Whidbey Island, no kidding, is a premier platform just because it's so, I got to tell you, it's just so dangerous, right? It's dangerous.
Mhm.
It's dangerous work. And the biggest thing is that all these folks before us that ran these programs work together with all the surrounding first responder agencies, right? All of them. And so specifically Skagit County and Bellingham Search and Rescue, Bellingham Mountain Search and Rescue. They have guys up there, amazing crews up there. And then of course the Whatcom County sheriffs and everybody. And so they fostered these relationships with everybody. And what that came to is the culmination of saving a lot of civilians, right? So out here in the Puget Sound, in the Skagit Valley area and Whatcom County and all that, the primary rescue for over water is Coast Guard. And then we're primary rescue for inland search and rescue. And they of course have the Dolphin, or they did. They might have a 60 now. They had Dolphins forever over in Astoria, right? And so we would get called out all the time. Like when business was good, and they would call us, but we couldn't go into the hills at night, right? Because the Army had the night vision goggle program for nighttime nap of the earth flying on goggles, and the Navy hadn't developed that yet. So we
Is
weren't
that out of JBLM, which was Fort Lewis?
probably
Yeah.
probably the Rangers or somebody, started it. I don't
Yeah.
know. It was probably the 160th that actually started it because they were always the premier platform for extrication and delivery, right? And so
Very good.
so good stuff. And so anyway, so Whidbey Island Search and Rescue, I did 2 tours there. I did tour from 3rd class to 2nd class petty officer from 1992 to 95, and then I came back in 99 to 2002, and I was their SAR chief here. And then my brother Robert Mirabal, call him Pup. I thought it was because he was the youngest rescue swimmer when I got to Red Dog's command, right? And that's why they called him Pup, because we retrieve things, right? It's Pup for picking up pieces, right? I didn't know that until we had friends for 8 years. I'm like, right? It had to do with this first rescue. Great leader. Red Dog assigned with me to make sure I was taken care of. So he was in Barking Sands with me, and then he was the SAR petty officer here at Whidbey Island when I got here. And still my brother and best friend to freaking day, no doubt. But he was constantly working with all the surrounding sheriff's agencies and everything else. And so He would, I got here and he's like, okay, this is what you have to do. You're going to rappel out of the helicopter just like we did at Barking Sands with Red Dog and this and that, right? And so you learn the ropes, you learn all the knots, you learn how the self-equalizing deck setup is set up. You get more into the features. I was already a functional check flight crewman for the H3. I got like 3,600 hours in it now. Right. But so I knew the bird really good. And but I didn't work on it anymore. Now we had civilians to work on it.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was
Were
all
you still, you were an ADJ, right? And did you convert to AW
no,
ever?
that program happened after I made chief and they were converting everybody to being AWs and
Mhm.
you had to choose, right?
Yeah.
And I said at that time, and I had already done 2 tours at search and rescue, 2 tours with you know, doing NSW stuff, right? And
Mhm.
everything else. So and other than that, I was a mailman and delivering packs, mail and
Yeah,
cargo.
no kidding.
And VREP was fun, but I was done at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Yeah, you
And
got a good case.
yeah, and so you had to choose whether you were going to be what side you were going to go to. So I chose to be a mechanic and
Mhm.
stay as an AD. And that is how I ended up making Master Chief. Like I don't think I would have ever, been
That'd have
able.
been tough. Would have been unfair. It'd almost be like start over because you're competing against these AWs that were, since the beginning.
Yeah, like Carl Bailey, he made it all on merit, and he was part of that Bud Nelson move. But I think Carl made it as a true AW. I think it was an AT in the beginning. Do you know who
Mhm.
Carl Bailey is?
Mm-mm.
We call him
Uh,
Uncle Carl.
keep dropping names. I want all these people.
Oh yeah, Carl Bailey. He's still in San Diego today, and great leader. Superior evaluator. He was a SAR evaluator too, and good friend that's out there. He's out there, and one of us, one of the OGs, like to say. Anyways, but so back to Whidbey Island, I ended up, I learning the ropes, so to speak, and went out on a bunch of training flights, learned like first flight, second flight out, went over to a place called the Fruit Stand, right? That you've heard about probably a few times. And basically you have the bay, right? And then the bay comes in and you have like a 120 foot cliff, sure cliff that goes up. And then there's the Fruit Stand, which used to be the survival training area for NES Whidbey Island folks that do flight physiology. They would take people out there and do their stuff, right? And
Okay.
so bivouacs and such, right? Kind of like,
Yep.
did you go through the Florida one?
Mm-mm.
You didn't for flight physiology when you
Oh,
first,
and aircrew?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
Remember how
Okay.
they had the tents all laid out and
Yep.
everything in there? So that's the kind of thing that
Oh,
they
they
had.
did out there. Okay.
Yeah. And before my time. And so anyway, so we go out there and train and we were rappelling, Pup was with me and we were rappelling a crew and some guys went down the rope and we lost a generator and we couldn't stop drifting because it turned the ace off and the pilots aren't that good with the sticks in an H3 typically when they turn ace off and we drifted and uh, we had to cut the ropes, right? Because what happens is you go down this string of rope and then you're down here and then the helicopter moves off top position, the rope goes over trees and gets pulled up. Well, all
Hmm.
the branches that come out of these pine trees are then on your shoulders, and so it'll literally rip your freaking limbs off, man.
Yeah.
And so it's better to fall than it is to
Yeah.
get yourself ripped apart. And
That's a
so
tough call, huh? But yeah, the
yeah,
alternative is either
oh
way it's
yeah,
bad, but this is probably the better of the bad.
yeah. Yeah, that just brings me to no time. So training flights, right? Training flights were always the most dangerous because you're
Mhm.
doing every day. You're going out, rappelling out of the helicopter. I flew as much as I could, man. I just loved it, and go out there and I wanted to learn and get good at it. Because I had all these OGs around me that I had to represent. I was the kid.
Yeah, prove
And
yourself.
so, right. And so went out there and did that. Like we used to call Pup Chavez, right? Because he's American Indian, right? And Mexican Indian. And Pup always had knives, right? So we called him Chavez, right? Paid
From Young
me
Guns.
from Young Guns, yeah. And so he bought a boot knife for me and he made me. He married my sister, by the way, right? So
Oh, wow.
kid, my brother, right? And so um, anyway, so he made me wear this boot knife, and so I put it in my Chippewas. Those were the type of boots we had, and he made me put my boot knife in and went out on a training mission. And tell me if you want me to redirect, Brian, too, because I'll just keep talking.
Keep talking.
So I went out on a training mission. We went out to the east side of Baker, little ways.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you rappel out of the first guy rappels out of the helicopter, lands on a perilous shelf that you can't get to unless you rappel to it. And it's a 1,000-foot drop all the way around, these kind of things all the time, because we've got to train like it's for real, right?
Sure.
So, but they drop you off. You go down single rope. You get off the rope. They drop you off, and then they fly away. And then you start the rescue scenario. You know, guy's broken on the shelf. Go down with a litter with somebody else, some new guy or somebody that's qualifying, or gal, right? That's qualifying, and then get him in this litter and do the procedure and take him out. And of course, I wasn't an instructor, but I was a fully qualified crew chief. So at this point in time, right, and I was able to make sure that the hookups were right and everything, right, and then sign that off for him. Well, anyway, so we went over and found one of these perilous cliffs that had this edge that went down, and then had a little area that we'd be able to work. And then it was a sheer drop all the way around, right? I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Put me right there. So they did, helicopter came over, they slid me down to, they were going to slide me down to the shelf. And I looked over and I could smell, have you ever smelt an engine when it's burning oil? You're going to lose it. Have you ever smelled that?
No, fortunately.
Yeah. You had great motors in the 60. And so the T58's great engine, but after a while they have their problems pretty much. And so, anyway, so I smell oil, and you can smell it after it goes through the number 5 bearing. You just smell, it smells like popcorn almost, right? And I'm like, hey, John, we're going to lose that engine. Watch out for the oil pressure. Have the pilots watch the oil pressure. And he's like, all right, and get out of here.
You're joking.
Just go, shut up, go, right? He was like, get out of here. He was senior to me. I'm like, get out of here. I'm like, yeah. So I slid down. I get down to the shelf, and we touch down, and I look up, and the helicopter's gone, and my ropes are going up and over these sharp rocks, or a rope is going up and over the sharp rocks. So when you touch these ropes, and being a climber, it doesn't take much, and they snap, and they're gone, and they're done when there's weight on them, right?
Yep.
They're gone. Yep. And so I'm like, I see the rope going up and over, no helicopter, and I get yanked off this shelf and up this embankment. It's steep, right? And so I'm going up this embankment, and I'm freaking out. And I know that 1, the rope's going to get cut, or 2, it's going to yank me up over the other side. And then I'm going to get to the other side, and I'm going to drop, and all my weight's going to drop, and the rope's not going to be strong enough to hold me, and I'm gone, right? And then I'm see you later, no parachute guy, right? So I reached down, right? And I grabbed this knife that, Pup made me wear it, put it in my boot before I left that day. He was like, and I'm like, man, forget you, man. You're all about, all this tough guy stuff. I'm just a dude, man. I don't need any knives, whatever. He's like, wear it. So he put it in my boot, made me wear it at brief that morning. Grabbed this knife out, man, on the 3rd try, and freaking hit the ropes and snapped it. It was gone, and stopped me from going over the edge on the other side. Yeah. And
how far did you fall, or were you kind of on that embankment? So you just
so now I'm sliding down this embankment, right?
Yeah.
And this little shelf at the bottom that I was originally on, and I'm sliding, and I stop my slide, and I'm holding on. I swear, these little plants that are coming out of the side of this.
Yeah, little
right?
veggie belays.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, save me, right? And so I stop my fall. I arrest my fall somehow, and then I worked down to the shelf, and then got to the shelf, and then of course they had a number 2 engine oil failure, and they went back and got another helicopter. And
did you have a radio with you?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So you're communicating. Man, think about Chavez though. It's a good thing he was probably having a I don't know, like a hallucinogenic peyote trip
He-
and saw that. He's like, okay,
My
this is
whole life,
gonna happen. Put
dude,
this knife in your boot, and you're like, screw you.
my whole life he's been looking after me, man, and
Yeah,
Red's
that's so
looking
cool.
after
It's
all
good
of
to
us.
have people like that, and I'm sure you're like that for others as well. It's just kind of the
We gotta
brotherhood.
be. Yeah, absolutely. We gotta be.
Yep. Wow, that's cool. So you want to talk about the rescue that occurred in the book?
Yeah, so that happened in 2000, actually. That was June 6th of 2000, I think. It was a Sunday, and um there's just like any other day, really. And typically what happens is people get hurt in the mountains, and the mountain rescue team, Bellingham or whatever, will try to work through Saturday or even Saturday and Sunday, depending on the severity of their injuries, to get them out themselves,
Mhm.
because they're on the, they get, they have their jobs to do. But when they can't do it and they need help, that's when they call Whidbey. So we typically used to get the calls. Come on, Bill. We typically used to get the calls. Um,
What's your dog's name?
this one's Bella. Bella, come here. Come
I
see
got a
Brian.
Bella. Oh, you can't see because I have this thing on. I have a Bella laying on the ground right now too. Got a
Oh, you
golden.
see, we got a couple Bellas. That's a baby,
Oh, that's cool.
baby. Yep, this is my baby. Um, so we get the calls, just before sundown, right? So about an hour before sundown, or 2 hours sometimes, if you're lucky, you get this call. And hey, we're trapped in the hills. Come save us. And we're not allowed in the hills at night. So
Mhm.
sunset, we have to leave. Over, right? And that's rules. This day we got called and um, headed up. It was basically what it was. It was two Russian climbers, and they were climbing the west face, I believe, of a glacier. I'm not sure if it was Coleman Glacier, but it was the west face. It wasn't Coleman. It was another one. It was higher up.
I think it
Way
was that North Face. It's like a straight up.
Is it North Face?
Mhm.
Maybe it's North Face. Yeah, I guess it would have been. Yeah, it would have been actually. And it was a sunny
It's a
day.
dangerous route. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's legit. So it's not like some weekend climbers. Like they went for it, and life happens. I've been up there, and some days it's not your day.
yeah, right. I bet you have. Certainly have, especially being at Everest and doing Everest and all that. But these are, 10,000-foot mountains, 9,000 something feet. And,
It's
it gets pretty serious up there. And when it's a sunny day and it's July or June 6th, I guess, it was the ice face got a lot of exposure. So it was soft and melting, and all the things about the snow is the biggest deal. And basically what happened is these climbers made it up to about 9,200 feet, and they were going up that ice wall, and one of them fell and was belayed to the other, right? And so he fell, he hit, uh, broke himself to pieces, and then the other guy was pulled off the top shelf and flew over the mountain, this hump on this ridge, and hit the other side. That's who we went and got.
Yeah, and the first guy, I believe, died on impact, pulled the
Yeah.
other guy off, and he was in bad condition.
Yep. So we flew to Bellingham International Airport, picked up Bellingham Search and Rescue guys. And so on board, I had like Dave Parrish and Chris, or what's Mr. Parrish's first name?
We'll go
Anyway,
with Mr. Parrish.
yeah, Mr. Parrish works great, great guy. And then Chris Cote was uh, our other pilot that was on board. Two amazing, amazing people. And then Bryce Schultz was the corpsman, and Marty Cruz was my rescue swimmer, and I was the crew chief. And uh, flew up to the mountains close as we could get, totally power limited, dropped off uh, everybody except for Marty and Bryce Schultz, and went up there. So I subbed my swimmer, my paramedic, got as high as we could, still too much weight. Went back and dropped Marty off and Bryce off. And then I flew back down to an area, the parking lot of Baker there's a parking lot there. I dropped off all the SAR gear, right? Took the SAR curtain out, took everything out. except for, I kept the quick splice just in case I needed it for my
smart.
hoist and the cable. Yeah, I kept that. And anyway, so all day we're working this thing. I went back up. We didn't have the power. Went back up. We didn't have the power because we had to come in at 9,300 feet. So we dropped the guys off at like 7,200 feet, and then they went up as far as they could. And then there was a crevasse, and nobody could get through the crevasse except Bryce. I mean, right? Bryce had these things called percuscus. You know what that is? The little ropes that you
Prussics.
Prussics. Yeah, that's it. Thanks. And he had those, and he went down in the fissure, went to the other side, climbed up the other side. Then they threw him the rope, and he pulled across the litter himself.
Wow,
He's
brave.
a stud, man. Telling you, like, I don't even know if I could have freaking did that. He's a tough guy. And we used to call him the Boy Scout. Yeah, he went all the way, almost became an Eagle Scout, but not quite. So we bust his chops and call him the Boy Scout. But there was no doubt that guy was all of that easily later on in life. And that's where he learned how to use those, by the way. Right, it was the Boy Scouts. And so he went up, and he ended up hiking the rest of the way up 9,300 feet, which is a significant jaunt. And I'm not kidding you. There were like 3 or 4 Volkswagen size.
You call them Seracs.
Ice pieces breaking off that roll down the mountain.
Yep.
Boulders, right? And so, but they're ice,
Yep.
and they were rolled down, and one narrowly missed the guys, And anyway, so Bryce went, and he finally gets up to this guy, and he's still alive. And Bryce calls out, he's like, I still got him. I'm here, patches him up. Next thing you know, hey, it's now or never. This guy's coding. I need you here now, right? So we said, all right. And so we came in, and they did power checks, and hovering out of ground effect for power checks, we didn't have it. But hovering in ground effect, you get like freaking 6 to 9% more power when you're hovering in a Higgy, right? Hovering in ground effect, which is the volume of air coming off of your rotor disc is pushing down on the land or the ship beneath you or whatever beneath you, and it creates this buffer, and it gives you more lift. So when you have more lift, hence you have more power, and you don't want to lose tail rotor authority by exceeding your power ratios and crashing the wall, right? So
how does that work? Like, because Baker's pretty steep, so you're not getting like a horizontal uplift. You're basically pushing that rotor wash down at an angle.
Right. So the half of the disc that's actually pushing that down. So half is lift, half does not. Right.
Okay,
only half of your stuff is lift. So you have to come in with that half over the ground. So half of your rotor disc that's spinning above you, half of it has to be the part that's over the ground. So if winds are out and you can't do an approach for that, then you just can't use Higgy. But in this case, we were able to, and we had just enough power. And I had one shot, right? So we went in, and I already had the cable paid out. And I threw it down to Bryce. Bryce grabbed it, hooked up, and I pulled him in. I'm like, go, go, go. And we had 3 BIM indicator lights go off, right? And so obviously being a crewman, BIM indicator for someone that's watching this that doesn't know it's the integrity of the leading edge of your rotor blade. They call it a spar, and it's filled with nitrogen, right? And when you get a crack in that rotor blade from trauma to the rotor blade, then that nitrogen leaks out, and this indicator then turns black, right? Black stripes in it, and you know that you're in trouble. And so, anyway, so 3 of our rotor blades were compromised. You get the BIM indicator light coming on, and once it comes on, you don't know if it's 1 or 7 or 6 or 5 or whatever. And next thing you know, so I got him on board. We transitioned to forward flight, made it out of there, got the door closed, and then Bryce he's like, he has to hit him with the defibrillator. I gotta hit him with it. Gotta hit him with it. I'm like, all right, man, sure. And so, we laid him out. Marty was waiting down the hill still with Bellingham Search and Rescue, and Bryce and I were up in the bird as we're transitioning to St. Joe's. It's a level 1 care facility, medical hospital up in Bellingham, right? We're getting this guy too. So we're transiting there. We lay the guy out, and Bryce gets out the paddles, right? And gets the defibrillator going, and he shocks this guy. Wham! He shocks him. And all of a sudden, he hits him, and Bryce flies up against the wall. Bam! And he's like this. And I'm like, I run over to him, right? I'm like, dude, you all right? And he was a senior chief at this time. I've known him my whole career, but senior chief this time, second time it would be with me. I'm like, dude, you all right? He's like, oh, he's like, yeah. He's like, I just got shocked because there was water all over the deck from the snow that we brought in. And so he throws down 2 rappel bags, right? Jumps back on and hits this guy again. Boom. Anyway, what happened is he brings the guy back. He gets gets his heart rate back, gets his pulse back or whatever, and he's breathing. And his body core temperature was like 92 degrees though. And that's where you start hitting renal failure, right? When you're that cold, right? So we got him down to St. Joe's, and then got him in, and he lived for 4 days. And then unfortunately he passed too, but we flew back up to the hills. We grabbed Bellingham Search and Rescue, and of course Marty grabbed my swimmer, and we flew to St. Joe's because we still had that BIM indicator light that we should have left for to begin with, but we were doing what we had to do, right? And so we landed in Bellingham, shut down to get gas, and lo and behold, had 3 bad BIM indicators. And so other than that, that was the day, and there was a picture, and that was that rescue. And
Yeah,
it's just another day. Yeah, it's just another day, really. But
another day, right? But what's incredible is, the one Russian climber, passed away on impact. The other one, you guys kept him alive. You plucked him out. He was able to, I believe, have conversations, have closure, just to be able to talk to his family before he did pass. I think that's the case, right?
That's awesome. Yep. I know he lived for a few days, like 4 days afterward. And that's what it's all about, right? So, our motto, so others may live and whatnot, it's just living up to that. And once that's with you and you believe in it and you actually, sacrifice that part of you, whether you get a rescue or you never get a rescue, it'll always be a part of you. And my dad would say, once you touch greatness, it never leaves you, right? Well, that's where it's at. It's at the risk of one's own self or absolute peril.
Yeah. And it's such a good segue because, I always say our job is the ultimate form of serving others. Like, you're literally willing to give up your life to save somebody you don't even know that's potentially even trying to kill you because they're in shock, they're panicked. And it doesn't even matter because the whole point is so others may live. And a lot of people don't get that. But it's who we are. It's why we made it through the training and continued on in our careers. But even beyond that, you've been out for a while now, a couple decades. Do you still feel that you are able to serve in some capacity in your civilian life?
So like all of us, all the swimmers that went all the way to retirement that were up here at Whidbey Island, right? And stayed here locally, everybody became a first responder, but Frank Leets. I didn't become a first responder, right? Yeah. I went and the last days I was in the Navy, I made sure I got enrolled in my degree, working for my business degree and this and that. And so but all the rest of us did up here. So that I'm part of an elite group of first responders because I was once a first responder and we're still all best friends. We're brothers and sisters, things like that up here. And I will always have that kin, right? And I'll always be affiliated with that. But the way I gave back personally, which made me different, is I was able to just treat people like they should be treated, right? Not be afraid to make the right call or the wrong call. I don't care what they think about me as much as I care about what they do for themselves. And so I've been able to give back through the different Fortune 500 companies that I work for, and the teams that I ran. It's pretty neat.
Sorry, is Bella snoring or? Are
Oh
you
no, this is
ripping ass over there?
my other puppy. This is Piggy.
Oh,
Say
Piggy.
hi, Pig. And I call her that because that's the way she talks. You
Okay.
know,
Wasn't sure if
she sounds like she's snoring, but
just snorting. Okay. Just
she
making sure
talks
you were
good.
getting a little
Good
gassy
puppy.
during this sentimental moment we were having.
Oh, always, always.
That's awesome. And that's, yeah, I mean, a lot of the folks that we served with went in as first responders. It's just a natural, transition because you're so used to it. But then there's others that, I went from one traumatic scenario to another, high altitude mountaineering, and kind of unconscious of that, but just putting myself in areas where I was, still saving lives. And there's so much capacity in our world to serve others. And it sounds like just like on a daily basis, it's who you are. It's ingrained.
Absolutely, 150%, you know, and you either are or are not. And by the time it washes out and you spend your whole life doing that thing, you know, the cream rises to the top, and the ones that are not a bad actor stay around.
Yeah.
And there's still a few bad actors at the top, but they're pretty much weeded out. And then they see one of us coming up the street and they walk the other way.
Yeah. Well, I've said that in the beginning of the book. Those that are talking the most are usually the ones that have done the least.
Isn't it?
The humility of just what we do and why we do it. All right. All right. We're getting too serious. You want to do a hypothetical scenario? You
Yeah, sure.
want
What
to
you
be a
got?
rescue swimmer for a minute?
I am. You bet.
Always a rescue swimmer. All right. Let's think of something fun. How about a cave diving rescue?
Okay. Uh,
Okay, I'm going to give you a scenario.
okay.
And the whole thing is as you're flying out, you're the swimmer, you're dressing out. It's just the mindset. What's
Okay.
going through your mind? Because, we always get misinformation and you kind of recalculate when you're on scene.
Mhm.
So the scenario is divers exploring an underwater cave system become trapped after a collapse. Rescue swimmers, you, must navigate tight, dark, and unfamiliar passages to extract the victims. That's all you know. You're flying out, you're rigging for rescue. What's going through your
Okay.
mind?
I need to know the tides, right? So I need to know if it's high tide, low tide, and when those tides are shifting. And once I figure out whether it's low tide or high tide, I'm going to make sure that I put that in my evaluation process in regard to whether the water's coming in or going out. So one of the things I immediately think of is the way back out and what tools I have in that SAR curtain. And so one of the tools I have in the SAR curtain is a little yellow belay line that you hook onto the to the rescue litter to keep it from spinning when you're doing a hoist, right? And so what I would do is I would take that with me and I'd put that somewhere, hook it somewhere outside to a branch of the cave and take that with me as far as it goes. I think it's only like 110 feet, if I remember right, that yellow line,
Yeah.
but it's nylon and it floats. And so that'd be good. And so I would take that in. In this case, the tide's still down enough to go inside the cave. So I would hit that. I'd make sure my timing was right as far as the waves and all that stuff going into the cave. I'd hit the cave and I'd call out for them, right? Hopefully, I would take an extra light with me and bring those and then I'd go in and just try to communicate with them and then obviously take out the worst of the two that's wounded if they're wounded at all, and I'd get them out. And heck, if the other one was capable and they had swim gear too, we'd all go out together, right? That way I don't have to go back for anybody because tides rise and be surprised like 10 minutes pass and you don't have access anymore to those things. And you just got to watch it, man. You can't go into a cave situation, especially without having extra breathers, extra tanks to go try to save somebody, right? But then there's another thing. So then do I take my HEEDS bottle out of my SB2 and take that with me?
Take everyone's.
Yeah, that's a story for Red Dog about my HEEDS bottle if you ever talk to him again. He'll
Oh
tell
yeah,
you.
no, I totally will. I love the underground stories that let's not say these in public.
Yeah, right, right. And so anyway, so that's the way I would handle it. And then of course, making sure we have all the resources and giving them medical assessment as soon as I could. When I got there, if I was able to, I'd call back, because now swimmers can talk to their freaking crew chief, and they're
Isn't that amazing?
not crazy. That's so
Yeah.
crazy. Like we tried the initial ones we got from the SEAL teams up here
Yeah.
back in the day, and you could talk and put them in your ear, but now they have all kinds of cool
We
tools.
had, I forget what it was, like a 125. I feel like that was the designation, but it was the thing you put on the side of your SAR one, and it's kind of like press to talk, but you'd get electrocuted every time you did it.
Remember that thing? Yeah, it was the PRC 125. I think it was the extension of it, right?
Yeah.
And we had a button and you could use it, but it
Yeah. I left that in the helo when I was doing anything. Like, I,
it, would, it was
I
just
don't know.
it would get caught and everything, and it wasn't practical.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So you learn the hard way. No, that's awesome. So great job. I love, bringing the line in, because you might have to find your way back out. Because even if you bring lights in or anything, and it's dark in there, and when you're towing someone out as the water's breaking, and you never know. So that's super smart. I don't, practical, don't know until you get down there. But at least you have it. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So that was good. No, I love it, because you've been out for a while now, and you can just go straight back, and your mindset is just, it's there, it's sharp. I love it. So man, that's incredible. So you've had tons of experiences, both water, land, 2 tours at Whidbey SAR. Like, who does that? But through all the years and the experiences, what type of wisdom would you leave with our listeners?
If you're looking at risking your life as a first responder, and that's what you're down with, you need to make sure that that's the last absolute thing that happens, that you strive to stay, right? Strive to stay in this world, and make sure that you bring those others out of peril and stay here. And I don't need to tell first responders that. I mean, most of them already know that. Yeah. But that would probably be one of the biggest things, just the biggest takeaway, right? Yeah. Don't try to be, don't run into a fire ill-equipped just to burn up for no reason.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, people, they do mean well, but in traumatic situations, most people aren't thinking correctly. They're in shock of what's happening. They're getting secondary trauma. So it's those that are trained in it. It's a balance, because you're going to risk your life, but not at the point of where you're going to become the victim, because now you just increase the number and the odds against you. So that's great advice. No one's given that yet on the pod, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, Brian. You bet.
Well, cool. Well, Frank, I appreciate you being on. I know you have so many other stories, so like sure. I told you earlier, like I'd love to have people on over and over, because these stories need to be told. But yeah, no, I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. Got your book, got it right away, and didn't even know I was in it. I was like, all right, Brian, wow, that happened too. So great research, right? A lot of great research went in your book, and I got to tell you, you be safe when you're out climbing these mountains, man. I mean, sure, I pluck people off of them, but I never put on, well, I never climbed like you've climbed.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Just be careful out there and do
Always.
That. And
calculated risks.
It is.
That's what we do. Cool. Well, thanks,
sir.
Frank, and thanks everyone, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Calm in the Chaos podcast. Please subscribe to be notified of future episodes, and if you enjoyed what you just heard, please leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Until next time, get out there and make a difference so others may live.